Okay, let's be real. Have you ever stared at your to-do list, then glanced at the clock, and just felt that sinking feeling? That you're completely, totally overwhelmed? The feeling that there just aren't enough hours in the day? Well, if that's you, you are definitely not alone. It's a feeling pretty much everyone has. So today, we're going to dig into it. We're asking, is the one solution we've all been sold, time management, actually a lie?
You know, the comedian George Carlin just absolutely nailed it decades ago. It feels like we're living in what some researchers call a time famine. We've got all this amazing tech that's supposed to make our lives easier, right? But somehow, we feel more rushed than ever before. It's a crazy paradox.
And what's our culture's answer to this feeling? An obsession with optimizing everything. I mean, look at this data from a PLOS One study. It's just wild. Since 1960, the number of books just mentioning time management has shot up by over 2,700%. We are absolutely convinced that if we could just get a little more organized, we could finally solve this problem. But you know, the stakes here are incredibly high. This isn't just about feeling a little busy or missing a deadline. This constant pressure, this feeling of being totally swamped and never catching up, it leads to burnout. And that's not just a buzzword, it's a really serious condition that can wreck every single part of your life.
So, what's the big solution everyone is selling? Time management. It's always presented as this magic bullet, you know? The one tool that promises to give us back some sense of control of our own chaotic lives. Now, when we talk about time management, we're not just talking about your to-do list app. The more academic definition is actually pretty interesting. It's really about three things: structuring your time, with a schedule, protecting your time, like setting some real boundaries, and then adapting when things inevitably go off the rails.
It all sounds pretty logical, doesn't it? But just because something sounds good in theory doesn't mean it actually works in real life. So what does the science have to say about all this? Researchers decided it was time to find out if time management really delivers on what it promises. So this is it. This is the big question a team of researchers wanted to answer once and for all. After decades of conflicting advice and personal stories, they wanted to get a real, data-driven answer. And to do it, they didn't just run one more little study. Nope, they did something called a meta-analysis. Now, I know this chart looks a bit complicated, but here's the key thing to understand. They took the data from 158 different studies and mashed it all together. The goal was to get the biggest, clearest picture possible of what time management actually does.
And what they found is, well, it's pretty surprising. Look at this. On the left, you've got what we all think time management is for, right? Getting better job performance, higher grades in school, that kind of stuff. But now look at the right. The actual measured impact was way stronger on things like your personal life satisfaction and just your overall sense of well-being. And here it is, straight from the researchers themselves. The biggest win from getting your time organized isn't that you suddenly become this productivity god. It's that you just feel better about your life. It cuts down on stress and gives you a feeling of control, and that is a massive boost to your happiness.
Okay, so the basic ideas of time management, they genuinely seem to help our well-being. But, and this is a big but, there's a twist. What about the tools we use? In today's world, that pretty much means the digital calendar. And it turns out the calendar has its own agenda.
So there's this sociologist, Judy Wajman, at the London School of Economics, and she has this really sharp critique. She says digital calendars basically force us to see our lives as a spreadsheet. Time isn't something you live anymore, it's just a grid of empty cells that need to be filled up and optimized.
So let's break that down. Digital calendars just flatten everything out, right? A super creative brainstorming hour looks exactly the same as a 30-minute dentist appointment. They also normalize a kind of surveillance. Everyone can see your schedule, which leads to what people call calendar bingo, where any open slot is seen as up for grabs. Plus, these tools often assume a careless user, someone who doesn't have messy, unpredictable things like, kids or family duties. And get this, it's led to this backlash, where people start scheduling defensively. They literally create fake meetings just to block off time to do their actual work. So the tool that's supposed to help is actually creating a whole new kind of stress.
So, if our digital tools are kind of broken, it's no surprise that people go looking for a better system. But this is where it gets tricky. This very human search for the perfect tool, the one that will finally give us control, well, it can become its own kind of trap.
And you see this play out all over the internet. There are huge communities built around these really complex productivity systems like Getting Things Done or GTD. And for a lot of people, these systems are life-changing. This user on Reddit calls it the master anti-procrastination method. It gives them a real framework in a world that feels totally overwhelming.
But then, on that exact same Reddit thread, you'll find this, the total opposite take. This person says that spending all that time learning some complex system is just a fancy new way to procrastinate. You're not actually doing the work, you're just organizing the work you're supposed to be doing.
And that's the paradox, right there. We can get so obsessed with finding the perfect app or the perfect notebook or the perfect system that we just get stuck. The endless search for peak efficiency, ironically, makes us way less effective. So, if the ultimate goal isn't just to be a productivity machine, and if the very tools we use can sometimes work against us, maybe we've been asking the wrong questions this whole time. Maybe we need to completely reframe what we're managing our time for in the first place. I love this old slogan from the 19th century labor movement. It's so simple and so powerful. The goal wasn't to optimize every single moment for work. The goal was to protect a huge chunk of time for yourself, time for what we will. It wasn't about filling the calendar up, it was about fighting to keep it empty.
And that really brings us to the final and maybe most important question. The science is pretty clear. Time management is good for us because it gives us a sense of control. But control for what? Maybe the point isn't to perfectly schedule every last minute of our lives. Maybe it's about consciously and fiercely protecting the time for the things that actually matter. So the question isn't how to manage your time, it's what are you making time for?